Just AM, 6-tube. It's one of those radios that when you turn it upside down and look at it cross-eyed, the insulation jumps off all the wire.
Oh, yeah.
So this one is about 60% rewired at this point.
You don't just leave the wire.
I gotta figure out where this one goes.
So we don't just leave the wire alone.
No, I have it narrowed down to where it goes. Anywhere you see orange.
Well, you've come a long way, Blake.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel too bad. I got 2 wires to connect. I got to figure out where this B- or return line goes, and then hook up the other side of the AC cord coming in, and that goes the switch. That's easy.
So as long as you don't touch the wire, it'll be okay, won't it?
I don't know. This one was when I pulled it out, I had a Technicolor dust inside the cabinet, so it was already on its way.
Wow.
But between new wire and some of the ground stuff, I just put fiberglass sleeving on it. Stuff I try to keep color true though. But I actually found a place that sells heat shrink pretty inexpensively. So I've now got it in a rainbow of colors, including purple and brown and orange and
Oh, wow.
yellow with a green stripe.
So you insulate your own wire?
Well, sometimes I do. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense and I replace the wire, but I've also got a pretty good selection of wire pieces. These are all 12 inches long in every color of the rainbow. It's about a 20 gauge stranded with solder tinned ends. So it's wonderful for rewiring radios if rewiring radios has anything wonderful about it.
Yeah. Wow. That's a job.
Yeah.
That's one thing that European manufacturers never really figured out, right? I mean, like ASCO and Bosch, some of the Bosch ones had all same color wire. They were brown.
Yeah. It's cheaper that way.
Just
Quantity
run it all one
discount.
wire.
Yeah, instead of 100,000 feet of each, you can order 3 million feet of one.
Jay Leno had I think it was a Tata or something like that car, and everything is yellow wires. The whole car is just yellow wires from Czechoslovakia. He was talking about that. They didn't figure it out, that different color wires might be helpful.
I know on my Datsun, for years I had the wiring diagram with it. Some guy went in and colorized the whole thing. He went in and traced every wire in the car, and that wire, if it was red, he turned it red in the wiring diagram. That was the fastest and best $20 I ever spent.
Wow.
That must have took him years to do that, right?
Yeah,
Oh
he was telling me that he produced them on a glossy 11 by 17 piece of paper. It's all done in laser, and he said that when he got it all done and announced it, that initially he got about 400 orders. And I thought, well,
wow.
That's that's pretty good money.
Well, there was a need out there, it sounds like.
Yep. Of course, the wiring diagram for a 69 Datsun is not terribly exciting. It has it has turn signals lights, it has an AM radio, and it has a heat. That's about it. Busiest wiring diagram in the car is the emergency flashers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, today the miles of wires you got in a car today, it's just incredible. I mean, even all of these wires coming out of the friggin' radio. I mean,
Oh yeah. Huh?
Before all you needed was a speaker, B+, and an antenna.
Yeah, and everything else was returned.
Hooked to the ground,
That's
hooked to the
good old days.
chassis, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but for all of the wonderment you have there, they still had that damn vibrator.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is about vibrators, but I seem to have found my hand across the wrong place in those many times.
Yeah.
They're not very forgiving.
And they bite you.
Yeah, they bite hard and they don't stop running either. I mean, they just load down and continue to deliver the goods.
I had this old 48 Dodge pickup with a 6-volt radio in it. Anyway, I brought the B plus out and put a plug under the dash. And anyway, I'd plug in my electric razor going to work. You know, it was good.
Cool. I'm going to be selling a couple of AC supplies at the swap meet. I've got vibrator powered. They're I think they're 6 and 12 volts in and 120 volts out. I don't know if anybody will buy them for fun, but they're complete. And one of them even has a vibrator in it.
Well, now you've got these little jobs, you know, to put out 200 watts to just plug into the cigarette lighter.
Yeah. I've got a true sine wave one I bought that it's got clamps for the batteries. I think I want to say it's about 1200 watts. And you know, I bought it to take it to meets. I've never used it.
Yeah. I've had one for years and years, and it's going to go on the free table as soon as we open up. And I suppose it's around a kilowatt.
Here's one for you.
Yeah.
A car radio electric razor supply.
Oh, wow.
Whoops. But it's got the cigar plug and a little metal case. Then you plug your razor in the bottom.
I'll be darned. Specifically made for that.
Well, I'm not really sure. The Shavex company, model 112. Made in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Distracted driving.
Yeah. Uh-huh. We didn't worry about that in the early 60s.
And no seatbelts, no airbags, no analog brakes, no crumple zones.
No.
Yeah, I ran across that in an antique shop, and I couldn't believe that anybody actually made and sold something like that. I think it's from the 50s.
No, I had an uncle that had a 66 Mercedes sedan. It had airbag. It had one airbag. Sat in the driver's seat.
You're only going to protect the driver, huh? Well, he paid for the car, right?
He paid for the car, but like you said, the one airbag was him.
Oh, okay.
At least put points on steering wheels, right? I mean, like a Chevy, like a 57 Chevy, it was pointed. The center of the steering wheel was pointed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a little cone, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No padded dashes.
I'd plug the razor in and the volume would drop a little bit, but you know, no big deal.
The 6-volt system too, right?
And I don't know how the vibrator handled all that, but it kept chugging along with that extra load.
So Bruce,
Yeah.
you ever have a car with one of these in it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I
So
think I got one in the garage somewhere.
yeah, this one slides into the dash, so it's got a receptacle here.
Uh-huh.
And you pull it out, and it's got batteries in it, and a speaker in the top, so you could
Yeah.
pull the handle out and
Keep
pull
going,
the radio out.
Oh,
Easier
okay.
to steal.
What's
Check
that?
Easier to steal when you leave it in the car, right?
Right, you just take it with you. I think this was an Oldsmobile product. It was either Oldsmobile or Buick. I think Oldsmobile.
Did you
But
get
it's
all those
called
radios?
Called a transportable. What's that?
Did you get all those radios, those car radios that were at the auction?
Absolutely not.
So Blake,
I unfortunately got to go home early. The individual I went with took a look at the stuff and said, "Well, there's nothing here for me. Take me home." Not just like that, but
oh shoot.
that was about it. I had Estevan pick up a radio for me, and the only thing that came home here was a 7-tube Zenith console with no top on it.
Wow. Cool.
And that turned around and went home with Gary Marvin about an hour later. So
So your
and I
portable,
brought what's that?
so your portable radio there. So you take it to the beach and play it there anywhere. So where's the antenna?
It's got a graphite rod antenna inside, and it connects to an antenna on the car. It's got a pretty good size connector on the back of it.
Okay. All right. So it does have a rod antenna internal.
Yeah. Now I repaired one for a fellow that came out of a Volkswagen. It was actually a Monkey Ward's radio, and it was the same idea, except it had just a cage that it fit in. And when you pulled it out, it was the size of a car radio, and it had a rod antenna in it that you had to telescopic antenna you had to pull out.
Oh, okay. Interesting, different approaches to that.
The last car radio I worked on was an interesting set. It was a hybrid transistor and tube, and the tube setup was a space charge. So it ran on a 12-volt plate and had no vibrator, but 4 tubes and 2 transistors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was out of a Ford, but it was a Motorola device.
Oh, it wasn't Philco, huh?
No, it wasn't Philco. This one was actually a Motorola.
Uh-huh.
It had a germanium output transistor that I had to cough up $20 for. A little on the spendy side, but that and 1 tube was the primary problem with it, and went ahead and replaced a few capacitors. And there wasn't much to the radio, just simple AM.
Yeah, there was a lot of those built with germanium power transistor hanging on the on the output there, and the 12-volt plate voltages. It's amazing how they work.
Yeah, there's a really cool design. They were called hitchhikers radios. And a lot of the original ones that came out before World War II, they're very popular in Australia, ran on a 9-volt battery. They took a 9-volt plate. And 59 was one of the tubes, but you had to find one where the, I can't remember if it's the suppressor and I think it's suppressor and the cathode have to be not tied together in order for the space charge to develop. But I've got a really neat 2-tube design. It runs on 2 9-volt batteries, and it's got one regenerative unit and 1 audio tube, resistance coupled. And I'd like to build it. I think we're going to build it into an old cigar box, and I'd like to set it up so that it all self-contained.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's amazing what some of those tubes do. I've looked at those on the curve tracer, and those 12-volt tubes, well, the space charge tubes, it's amazing how quick they start picking up current on the plate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it'd be fun to see that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to get a curve tracer and play with it.
That's all right. I know. I have a friend with a curve tracer. I can go over and use one of his too.
We just got another one at the museum, a 570, which is the vacuum tube curve tracer from Bill DeVay's estate. I don't know if anybody knew Bill DeVay, but anyway, this thing just looks like it came out of the factory. Even the damn Scope Mobile, although the Scope Mobile isn't the right vintage for the curve tracer, but I mean, it looked like it just came out of the factory. Now, we haven't plugged it in yet. We'll see what happens then, but incredible. He took so much care of it.
Bruce, when did Bill DeVay pass away?
Oh gosh, this has been, what, a year ago?
Wow.
Yeah.
We would bump into him down at Seaside at the Ham Fair, And I think it's only been maybe 2 or 3 years, but we spent some time at his home down at Cannon Beach.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hadn't heard that he'd passed. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Oh, he's a really neat guy.
Oh, yes.
I knew him at Tech and dealt with him a fair amount. He was involved in quite a number of projects. And yeah, pretty avid hitting the ham swap meets and stuff.
Well, Bruce, what are you working on these days?
I just replaced our hot water heater.
Good for you. Gas or electric?
It's a through the wall gas electric or gas hot water heater. It's got a coaxial flue connection that puts out the exhaust on the middle pipe and brings in fresh air on the outside pipe. And anyway, we've had it for 31 years and, you know, it's well past the 5-year warranty. And the pilot's been going out reasonably often. And so I finally decided, well, it's probably time, and replaced it with another one like it. But gee whiz, ooh, hot water heater's gone up in price.
Yeah, I
course,
think I paid about 7 and a quarter for the one I put in, and that was 3 or 4 years ago.
Anyway, so this is 31 years, but that was $1,200.
Wow.
But it's through the wall with a coaxial connection and it's reasonably efficient. It's not a condensing type. Those go way up in bucks. But what amazed me was this is 66% efficient. And in its documentation, they talk about heating the house with it. In other words, circulating water through radiators and fans or into, you know, the old hot water exchangers or radiators that you had around the house, you know, the big old cast iron jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, wow, 66% efficient, you know, when you got furnaces that are 96%. It didn't make a lot of sense, but
That was probably pretty efficient in the day.
probably was. Probably was.
Well, we had a house in Texas that had a pump that took water out of the bottom. I think it took it out of the bottom of the hot water heater, circulated it all the way around through the house, and then back into the top of the hot water heater. And the intent there is no matter where you were, when you turn on the hot water, it was, 2.5 seconds to hot water.
Yeah.
And that was kind of neat. Most of the downstairs piping was in the concrete. And so we had nice warm paths in the kitchen.
Yeah, what I did here is the hot water heater is next to the bathrooms and the kitchen's a mile away. And so what I've done is put a small electric just under the kitchen here in the basement, which is fed by the hot water heater, the other hot water heater. So you got hot water immediately, but if you use a lot, you're getting it mainly from the big hot water heater. Rather than, running the water for a couple of minutes to get the hot water there. Wasting a lot in the process. Anyway.
I know when we had ours in Texas, the thing first of all, you waited forever for hot water, and that didn't make any sense to me. And I called them and told them, I said, that's not working. They said, well, sometimes they work and sometimes they do, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Oh,
and
fine.
I happened to be in one of the bedrooms. It was next to where the hot water heater was, which was up in the attic. And my wife went in to take a shower, and boy, the second she did, that pump made the most horrific sound. I crawled up in the attic and looked at it and said, well, crap, how could they get this wrong? They got the arrow pointed at the at the hot water heater. It needs to be pointing towards the sour. So I called them up again and said, okay, guys, come send somebody out here that knows what an arrow is and where it should point and turn this damn thing around. And they did. They came out and turned it around, and it worked. It worked great for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then we left. Probably still pumping today.
Gentlemen, I have a radio question.
I have a hot water answer.
Well, I'm working on a hot water 16, if that helps, Heathkit, but that's not my question. I have a 46 Admiral, All-American 5 tubes, and it has a 78 record player with it. The radio works great, but I don't get a whole lot out of the record player. And I was wondering what the voltage output from the cartridge should be.
Volt and a half to 2 volts.
I'm sorry?
Volt and a half to 2 volts, but it is likely a salt crystal cartridge. And any kind of moisture, age, looking at it cross-eyed or a sharp blow, that salt crystal will go to pieces. And I suspect you're going to end up with probably having to put a new cartridge in it. And the Shinjenko works really well. They're about $5 on eBay. And I will be in possession of about 100 of the mounts for those in about 2 months. So if you can hold off a couple of months, I'll have the cartridges here, and I'll have the really hard to get mounts for them. It'll snap into it, but it'll give you a pair of, give you the 2 screws that go up into the top of the tone arm. So
Right. Well, then that solves that. I'll just continue to check in with you. I haven't been at a meeting for 2.5 years, and that's because I moved to Idaho, and it makes coming to meetings a little difficult. But I'm continuing to work on radios. A fellow gave me a 48 Philco console, AM, FM, and has a record player to it. But it's a little too complicated for me, so I'm going to drag it over to Robbie Robinson and later next month and have him take a look at it. I'm looking for a replacement for that, though, something that has a console with a radio and a record player. So Robbie's going to look for me at the radio sale. I think it's on the 15th, and then I'll be out the next week and see what he's found for me.
cool. Well, I can certainly give him the needle and the mount when I get it. And when the 2 of you get together, we've been doing the foldings over at his house, and as soon as I get them, I can give them to him. He can have them one hand when you come out.
Okay, I'll be over at his house probably on the 20th of May.
Okay, and I don't know that I'll have them by then, but I'll have the cartridges, but I won't have the mounts. I had to buy 100 of the bloody things to get them at a reasonable price. So I'll be splitting up with a couple of other collectors. But no, we'll, only a phone call away, and there's a lot of YouTube stuff out there on how to change out those cartridges. But it won't have the output that the crystal cartridge had, but it'll work well enough. You'll be able to turn up the volume and enjoy the records.
I don't want to be on that screen.
That'd be great. The console that's the radio record player, if there's one for sale at the swap meet on the 15th, Robbie's going to pick it up for me, and we'll see what it looks like. And I'm going to drag this one back for him to work on, but it's complicated. I think it's got 17 tubes in it, and which is almost a little much for me. Some of the old capacitors are buried down inside.
Yeah, well, Robbie will have a good time working on it, and he knows he can always, come over here and get parts.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so those are the two things. And I appreciate the info about the crystals, and I'll continue to check in with you. I just finished working on a 39 Philco portable, and I was wondering what kind of a battery those things used to have. I'll grab it here.
Big.
There it is. I found it at in a antique store in La Grande, and it's in excellent condition. And but I was wondering what kind of a battery those things used. It has a 117 volt rectifier tube in it.
Tom Myers is on. Yeah.
Any idea, gentlemen?
I think you'd have to look that up.
I would be willing to bet that in 39, it's probably 1.5 volts and 90 volts. I have a 90 volt battery, but it's a lot smaller than what you have. It wouldn't run the radio for all that long.
Oh, yeah.
Either way,
How about 67.5?
So we won't need the battery.
Now you can
Do
take
those radios use 67.5 volt batteries also in addition to 90s or instead of 90s?
here's my 67.5 volt battery. It looks just like the 90.
Yeah, it does.
So a lot of people take 9-volt batteries and plug them together into series and use those.
Oh, yes.
Or you can buy these kind of batteries and they plug in very nicely. Instead of 2 AA's, you have 4. These are type LR44s, I think it is. These are 6 volt. They also make one that's slightly smaller, still fit, that are 12 volt. And you can pack them all in here, and it comes with a very convenient 9-volt snap on the end.
Oh, yeah.
These are great for the even smaller radios.
Yeah. So how'd you do with that Philco turntable, Blake?
You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and restore it.
Uh-huh.
I haven't done anything with it because it is in a fairly long line right now behind. I don't have enough fingers to count them, but a lot of radios.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not. I told them that they would probably be working on theirs in the June, July timeframe, and they were fine with that. But I am going to go ahead and take a shot at it. The mechanics of the unit seem to be in good shape, so I'll disassemble it, lubricate it, put it back together, and let's see if we can make it work. I'm intrigued by the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember on the one I worked on, the alignment of the mirror was pretty critical to get good output.
Yep.
And
Well,
the focus of the light. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the focus of the light and the proper alignment of the mirror are the two things that are critical. And I don't know if David's on, but yes, I can see your IMs. Let's see. I don't know how to continue to be here and do IMs at the same time. I'm not good at multitasking. I'm an engineer. Okay. Thank you, David. You understand that. But anyhow, like I said, the mechanics are good on it. And I understand from the forums that those tend to hold up pretty well. And they're not terribly problematic, at least not the beam of light portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the lights are typically intact and the sensors still work. And anyway, we'll find out. I'll write it up.
That's fantastic. Somebody just gave me a new book. It's written in 2008. Yeah, looks pretty interesting. I haven't really got into it yet, but it starts right from the nitty-gritty, and looks like it's going to go into magnetrons and all kinds of stuff here. traveling wave tubes.
What is a traveling wave tube? I heard you use that term more than once.
Yeah, you put it in the trunk of your car and you take it to Boise.
It waves at you.
Yeah, no, it's a microwave amplifier tube. Hang on just a second.
So it's like gigahertz type
I gotta
thing?
walk out.
It's got different diodes in it that, I don't know, you could almost think of it like a, what do you call that other tube?
Cyclotron or no?
No. Oh, sorry.
So you use the term, what it has different
Diodes,
dinodes? What's it? Plates.
plates, basically. And anyway, it just keeps popping along and through the stages and increases its output. Basically, you put in a little signal and it cascades down all these diodes and then comes out at a big signal.
So
Is
it's
it
like a
like a-
klystron?
Yeah, in a way. The klystron's got all these cavities. No, that's the magnetron.
What is it like it's like a photo multiplier? It's like a multiplier tube?
Kind of like
Yeah.
a multiplier of sorts.
Okay, so it's just got each surface is, you just hit it with electron, it spews off a bunch of more
Yeah.
electrons.
From my understanding, anyway. I'm getting them confused now.
And those are used for what purpose?
For RF amplification,
Oh,
Microwave, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
microwave stuff.
so like radar and
So I was doing a little work for a guy, Bernie Vansel. He's out in a barn.
I
And
want to visit Bernie.
anyway, he's making these traveling wave tubes. They're about EA long.
Mhm.
And those are for going up, NASA wants to use them up in space in these cube satellites. And anyway, it's 37 gigahertz. And, you know, there's no real, well, what are they used for?
I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used one before in a military satellite communications van that was capable of 1,500 watts of microwaves to do basically what was the TriTac standard point-to-point on the ground through a satellite up into space. When we first got the equipment, we used it probably around 1,000 watts. But as time wore on and better instruments became available, they kept jacking us back and back and back to where we could only allowed to use maybe 10 or 15 watts out of this amplifier capable of 1,500 to 2,000 watts. But yeah, it's used in the military. Probably not so much anymore, but in the 80s and 90s, it was used for satellite communications, ground stations.
Well, this 37 gigahertz looks like it's intended for radar.
Yeah, so I was wondering.
Looking for other satellites to shoot down or something. Anyway, they put out like, these little guys put out like 35 watts at 37 gigahertz.
It's amazing that they can get 37 gigahertz out of those. I mean, the voltage has got to be enormous on those to get that electron velocity.
Yep.
Acceleration.
The
The thousands of volts.
Yep. Around 3,000 is what we were doing. What he needed was a pulse generator that it would put out a square wave at 3,000 volts, and that's what I was doing. And you just wanted a narrow pulse to put out these bursts. But you look at semiconductors, yeah, you can do 37 gigahertz on a pinch, but they're not very efficient. And how do you get rid of the heat?
Yeah,
It's all radiation.
in space,
Uh,
yeah.
Vacuum tube, radiation is easy. You just run it hot, you know,
Mhm.
much hotter than you could run a semiconductor. So the traveling wave tubes are still being used and all these satellites up there because of their basic efficiency.
So does this tube even have a jacket on it? Does it even have, if it's up in space, you don't need to have a vacuum on it, right? So it just needs to be a shell.
Well, they have to put it together down here, and they do put a jacket on it.
Okay.
How do you test it?
Well, you just start in a vacuum chamber, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
guess you could do that. Yeah.
you know, I mean that I've done ultra high vacuum chambers, you know, before. It's pretty easy, really, to get a, you know, a microtor's piece of cake.
So the other thing is that you're going to have it back to air before you send it up there.
Mhm.
So that doesn't do good things to the cathode.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you activate the cathode, and then you get the oxide on it. It doesn't like that, then the cadmium or whatever is on the cathode.
The other thing he makes are cathodes for ion engines. And these are,
His own metal depth tools and stuff like that.
what's
You know,
that?
he has his own metal depth tools and stuff like that out there.
Oh, he's got all kinds of things in that old barn. You kick the chickens out of the way and go into the barn and all this esoteric equipment. Well, a lot of the equipment is basically old stuff from Tektronix when they got out of the CRT business.
Oh,
When flat panels came along, why he bought up a lot of this CRT equipment, vacuum equipment and stuff. But he makes these special cathodes, reservoir cathodes with some other magic that allows them to go to put out a lot of current. And those are, NASA uses those for ion engines that
really?
help support keeping the satellite up in orbit rather than carrying heavy fuels. Doesn't put out a lot of thrust.
But doesn't need to, right?
No, but it, you know, you got power up there with arrays, solar arrays, and so that's what they tend to do.
So do you know a guy named Ed Wardzala? He used to work at Tektronix.
What was again?
Ed Wardzala.
No, that's not familiar.
He was an RF guy at Tektronix, and I got this issue where I put a variable frequency drive on my milling machine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's producing some noise, some conducted noise, and I have a little x-axis jog. It's a power on my x-axis, and it's made in probably about 1960. And the noise in the EMC conducted is causing my x-axis just to not. It works, but it you know, I don't have the variable speed on it. It just runs fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure that out. So I'm trying to figure out what's the right filter to get for that. And Ed says it's the way they made these x-axis jogs. I can't remember what component they had. You know, for variable speed. They said they were particularly sensitive to conducted noise in the power lines.
Well, you might be able to just put in a standard line filter and help that.
But it's got to be over the right frequency ranges, right? So how do you measure that? How do you know what noise you have? Conducted noise.
You can use a scope and look at your line. And if it's really good and strong, if you can't see it, you can usually put in, you know, it's usually higher frequency. So you can put a smaller capacitor in series with your scope probe.
Okay.
To pick out the high frequencies and look. Typically, if you trigger on line, then you'll see something line related. That's usually how it comes out conducted anyway, and in bursts with respect to the line voltage. The other thing is the spectrum analyzer. That works wonders.
Yeah, I've got my scope's got an FFT on it, so I can.
Yeah, you might be able to pick it up with the FFT.
Okay, so you just put a capacitor on your probe. You just probe it with that. But what do you do with your ground cable then? Does that just go on your ground on your
earth ground?
earth ground?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I can run an FFT and away she runs.
Yeah, the furnace we have has a variable speed drive on it, you know, for the fan. And anyway, it puts out, I can't remember now, but like 8 kilohertz.
Yeah, my carrier frequencies, I got it set at 7 kilohertz. Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't do near as much problem as my, what is it? My Canon scanner. God, it puts out crap all over the 120 kilohertz and on up.
Oh, it's all right.
I did a demo on that, didn't I? For you guys? No. All you got to do is plug it in.
Was it going to shut off your PC then?
Find the power cord. So there's a radio sitting on the scanner. The power cord's behind the scanner. If I plug it in.
Over there. Okay.
Okay, now let's turn it on.
What they need to know about.
So I have X10 throughout the house, which is basically remote control over the power line.
Mm-hmm.
It uses 120 kilohertz. And I couldn't figure out why it quit working. And so I started putting a current probe on the breaker box on each. Well, hell, that's coming from my shop here. You know, what have I got in here that's so damn noisy? And anyway, I finally unplugged this scanner and the noise went away. So I never leave it plugged in anymore.
Did you
So
say
the
that
switching power supply?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. Oh, yeah.
did you say that was X10 device?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was Radio Shack sold that line of stuff also under their own brand.
Yeah, plug-in power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you can still buy it, can't you?
It just
Oh, yeah.
communicated over the power line at 120 kilohertz
Yeah.
on the zero crossing of the 60 hertz.
Yeah, BSR has a very rich line of those still.
Is that right?
Yep, they've got 20 amp units now.
I could never get it to work very well. Those,
And the other thing I discovered is all these LED lamps put out
noisier in hell.
a lot of crap also.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of giving up on it. There's just too many noise sources anymore. And just, I mean, that's just an AM radio. I had off the station, you know. And with the power cord near the radio, why it just goes nuts.
So you say a line filter would work? Is that I'll have to, I bought one on eBay. When I saw it spec'd out, it's supposed to go down to 50 kilohertz, up to 100 megahertz or something like that. It's not as good as the attenuation of lower frequencies, and it's good, better, higher frequencies. So
Typically, it's not the low frequency that bothers you. It's the high frequency that gets into.
It's like megahertz and above or something like that.
Yeah. You get into things called rectification, where the signal actually changes the bias of things.
Oh,
in your
really?
amplifier, yeah.
Another thing to learn. This is good.
I actually have a line filter that's put in backwards on my entertainment center.
Okay.
Because of all the KEX and I don't know what the Russian station is, but I got 250 kilowatters within a mile of me. And all the ground loops and crap coming in, I basically had to float the entertainment center away from the power line, because the power line's got all this voltage on it at a megahertz or so.
Oh, really?
When we moved in here in 75, of course, the phone was just Ma Bell. Okay, so I put a phone in the basement so that we could use it down here, but you know, you couldn't hook the Bell up because you'd find 2 Bell loads and Ma Bell would have a fit, you know. And so I made an optical isolator on the bench, and oh, that works pretty good. Anyway, I put it up in the ceiling and the damn thing wouldn't shut up. And so finally I took my scope probes on the telephone line, dink, dink, and holy crap, the screen just turned green. Anyway, I'm getting 200 volts peak to peak of 1 megahertz on the phone line. And granted, it was common mode, but it would capacitively couple into my other circuit there. So I had to do some more filtering. Anyway, the other thing I should have done was capacitively coupled that and matched it to the hot water heater. If I got 200 volts of 1 megahertz, let's just heat the water.
Exactly.
The phone company would have probably had a fit, but anyway. So yeah, I've got, when we moved in, it had an aluminum garage door, which was made from aluminum siding or something. And anyway, you could hear KEX on it occasionally, you know, how you warp the door, because it would act like a diode, you know, the aluminum sheets with the oxide in between them and all that. At one time, I made a crystal set for the kids. And anyway, you'd hook it to the furnace duct and to the bed frame. 1N34s wouldn't cut it. And so I finally put power rectifiers in there, you know, 1 amp diodes and a matching transformer on a regular speaker. And you could hear KEX just fine at a normal listening level. And then put a pot on it to short that out, you know, at night to quiet it down a little. So anyway, I've lived through all this RF for, gosh, 45 years now, still alive.
So on those filters you put on there, there's how do you know which way to hook the ground up? There's typically 2 capacitors that are going to ground, and then there's inductors, and then there's like sometimes there's a resistor and capacitor in parallel. But how do you know which side to hook up to the noise generating?
Well, typically you just put that in series with your whatever you're using.
But it doesn't matter which way you hook it up then, just as long as you just put it in series.
Typically it does, because you've got a network in there that works better one way or, oh, yeah, you're fighting the noise on the line rather than the noise internally.
I'm finding the noise from my VFD.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to attenuate the noise generated by my VFD so it doesn't go other places.
Yeah. So basically, that's what they're made for.
But they don't, the thing with it is they don't say which way to hook it up, right? There's no instruction manual anywhere. It says, you know, put your noise bearing line source on these two posts and then take, you know.
Okay, so it doesn't have an IEC connector on it?
No, it's got just screw connectors. This is,
So it's screw connectors on each end.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there ought to be something in the documentation that tells you which way to hook that up.
I will find it.
Well, hook it up and see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not going to really hurt anything if you hook it the wrong way. So.
Yeah.
I was thinking that you'd want to, before you go in through your inductor, you want to put your, there's on one side, there's two capacitors that go to ground, one from each leg. And I would think that would be the side you'd want to put on your noise side, because that would, with your inductor there, it would force the RF to go to ground.
Send me your schematic. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, I'll do that.
The other thing is when we moved in, you had the Ma Bell phone. That was it. And anyway, I was at work when they finally came and hooked us up. And so the wife calls me on the phone and we're yelling back and forth over KEX.
Oh boy.
And anyway, well, what can I do? They already left. I said, call them back. Well, I can't call them on the phone. I said, sure you can. They'll get the idea when you're yelling back and forth. So they came back the next day and they put capacitors across the line all over the place in the house and screwed around, and got down. KEX was about at your normal talking and listening level. And well, that's all we can do. So anyway, I got home the next day and blah, 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 can't use a phone. And so I dug around downstairs to, you know, my stuff's still packed up. I found a 0.01 ceramic cap. I put it across the microphone and KEX is gone. That was the nonlinear device, the rectifier.
Really?
Anyway, if you had the phone in your hand and you went over and touched the kitchen sink, you know, you had the long cords back then, you could bring KEX up a little bit by grounding yourself with that, but it was still pretty minimal. Anyway, it was years later, the neighbor came over to use our phone because their phone didn't work. And, well, where's your KEX? So I gave him a couple of caps and away he went, happy as a clam. But why the phone company couldn't figure that out, I don't know.
Yeah, Bruce, we had a similar situation at a church that we belonged to in Bakersfield, California. It was an older church and they had microphone cables that were in conduit that ran over to the lectern and the pulpit. And when they would turn the microphone up on the pulpit, as soon as the pulpit, you got country and Western music. And when they turn it up on the lectern, you got a Mexican station.
All right.
And it was the same thing. It was they had aluminum and copper and I think 3 different kinds of wire that had been, you know, put together, and the contacts between them became active and on both sides, you know. And of course the way around that was, fortunate it was in conduit. We pulled all the old cabling out and replaced it with good new shielding in single pieces, and that all went away. But you know, it got to be kind of a snicker. People would try and see if they could figure out what song was playing on the country Western station.
You're not paying attention.
No, and it was on the pulpit, so during the entire sermon you would be listening to, you know, Johnny Cash and George Strait.
Hank Williams. Talking about all his crazy friends coming over tonight and stuff like that.
They're trying to make it more entertaining, huh? Yeah.
Oh, I have company. John Livingston just drove up.
I sent Bruce. I sent a link to that data sheet.
I'll take a look at it a little later.
Okay.
Oh, you sent it here on chat?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those look pretty symmetrical. I don't know that it makes a difference which way you go.
Well, it's, yeah, there's a slight difference, right? You can see there's a resistor on one side,
Yeah.
and there's just capacitors. This one's a little bit, I guess the one I was thinking I would go with the 3 and 4.
We're not real
is
sure
the
what's
area where
going
you have
on
the noise
outside
coming in.
there when
1
you
and 2
use
is
the
supposed to be
parking
clean.
spot.
Oh, yeah.
Um, No, they show up about this time a night every once in a while, and product is traded back and forth. And there's the motorcycle and the van seem to be common. The car is not suspected.
Okay, so they don't give you any data
Yeah.
on what the values of those inductors and
Not
capacitors
good.
are.
No. Now it's their 11 herbs and spices, right?
Fortunately, I can.
Yeah. So I would just, you know, I think it's pretty symmetrical. The only reason there's an R in there
Yeah.
is to reduce shock hazard when you unplug the filter. If you happen to unplug it on the peak
sure.
of the line, those capacitors would have voltage stored.
That's true. That's
And
your
so
bleeder.
it's a UL requirement so that those capacitors will discharge before you can get your fingers in there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Now, where's my zoom? There it is.
It's got pretty good performance, pretty good filtering performance.
Mhm.
So 20 dB is basically 1/10 the power, right? 1/10 the voltage, I should say.
Oh God, my dBs. I keep getting confused. It's a lot.
Yeah.
The hams know that, don't they?
What's that?
The hams know dBs, right? Power and voltage.
Yeah, I think it's 1 dB is 20 log base 10 of voltage 1 over voltage out or whatever, V1 over V2. So did you guys go to the auction on Saturday?
How many people went?
I wasn't there. I didn't go. I'm gonna get my second shot here on the 4th, and then 2 weeks later I'll be feeling a little bit like I can probably do something, but not until then.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't go to the auction.
So when do you guys think you'll open up at the Tech Museum?
We've opened up by appointment only.
By appointment only.
Yeah. So you can, let's see, yeah, just go up there and it's contact us at vintagetech.org.
Okay.
And there's usually somebody there on Saturday, 10 to 2. Other than that, it's it's if there's a volunteer available.
Okay.
But
So who would I contact about, getting, if I bring a piece of equipment down there to work on it, who would I contact? Who's the guru on that sort of stuff?
Via contact us, you can get a hold of Bob Haas.
Bob Haas.
He does most of the external repair. He has been doing some that required shipping, but we've given up on that. We've had too many disasters.
Oh, I wouldn't ship old equipment around.
Yeah, shipping stuff. We've shipped to Europe and Austria, no problem, but California,
No.
oh God. They destroy things and they're double boxed and packed like mad. So anyway, we've shut that down. We're not going to locally. We'll probably keep that up. What do you have that you want looked at?
Oh, what I have is it seems to work. I think it's just more of a calibration. I have a Fluke 4200. It's a AC calibrator. It's quite a piece of equipment.
Yeah, I don't know whether they'd want to tackle that or not.
Is that right?
Yeah. Do we still have ours? Stan had one that we used at the museum, but I think he took it back and sold it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, it's a pretty big instrument, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty big instrument.
Yeah.
Weighs more than my wife.
Yeah.
Mhm. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, there was we had 4 or 5 of them at once.
Did you really?
And what they were doing was a stare and compare to see how they were all calibrated. And all of them were pretty goddamn close. Close to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But if they're all close together, you kind of go, it's probably
Yeah.
pretty close, right?
Mhm. Yeah, several different people owned one of those, and we got them all together in one room and sampled them.
That's a great idea. Well, shoot. I think I'm just gonna call it a night then. I'm got up early this morning. I gotta get up early tomorrow, so I'm drink my warm water and go to bed.
You're gonna start saving stuff, and I'm like, I can't even record this one. How am I gonna pretend?
You could probably start on the radio and then you wouldn't have to go to bed until midnight because that'd be the first time you looked up. That's the way it works with me.
Yeah, no, it's the same skill set for me.
All right, folks, I am going to jump out of here because I have guests who have arrived. Joe Millward and John Livingston are here. So I'm not sure what tonight holds, but I think we're done here.
Have a good one.
Tell John we said hello.
Yeah.
Hey, hello.
So I got a radio question.
Go ahead.
I think I have, I wasn't sure for a long time what it was, but after going through some reference materials, I think what I have is a FADA model 169 kit that was built back then. It's a Nutridyne receiver from 1924-25. Does anyone have any experience with Nutridyne?
What
If
is
it's a
Nutridyne?
FADA, and if it's that old, is it just a plain amplified battery set with RF
Well, it's got
amplifiers
three-
and
Yeah.
audio amplifiers?
That's basically a TRF.
Uh,
And,
that one right there. Where are we at? Second from the bottom.
With
That's the
three
167.
dialer?
It's got 3 tuning dials and then looks like 2 audio controls, 2 audio outputs.
Yeah, that's just a straight TRF.
Yeah, maybe.
It shouldn't do any Nutridyning.
the Nutridyne is just a feedback capacitor. And those do have to be.
Is that what the deal is, huh?
Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
Okay. Well, it's never been powered up since I've had it.
Well, go through it and make sure that everything is safe to power up and give it a try. Make sure make sure there's no shorts or anything or opens or anything like that. And it ought to come up and play. It's a simple battery set.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Some of the writers seem to indicate that at least the model 169, and this was an A model, I think, there's really no identification on the set itself. And the difference between the 67 and the 69 is where the terminal connections are, front or back, for the battery voltages.
Can you find where the battery voltages go in and which ones should go in here and there?
Yeah, it's all labeled.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So basically get a battery eliminator or battery power supply and see if the tubes glow.
They're kind of hard to see glow,
Yeah.
but you can certainly take an ohm meter and check the filaments
Okay.
and see that there's continuity there.
Are all the tubes like O1As?
Say that again.
Are the tubes O1As? Zero
No, they're
1A?
not.
They're not?
No, if this schematic is correct, it's 6SA7, 6SK7,
No,
6SQ7, which I don't think is right because that's for the model 169.
No, the second one that you described with all of the 6-volt tube, that's a superhead.
Yeah. So, yeah, well.
I don't think the
writers is a
SK7s
little
were.
hard to figure out sometimes.
those are all 4-pin tubes, right?
It's got five tubes in it.
Yeah, but they're all 4-pin, correct?
Well, I can go pull one and see.
For that radio, they're going to be 4 pins, Bruce. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold
And
on.
they're all going to be O1As, or maybe a 12 in the output stage.
Well, the SK7s, 6 SK7s weren't made until the late 30s.
Yeah, that's
And
octal.
That's an
Dave,
octal.
you're right. That's a modern tube.
A modern tube. Okay.
But I just. It's still early in the
Here
evening.
it is.
No, but that particular model number that he's talking, you're talking 1924, 1925. That's just a straight TRF battery set, like you said.
230.
230? Okay, so it's a 30.
Mhm.
That seems awful early for a 30.
That doesn't seem right. Mark, did someone just put tubes in to fill the sockets?
Yeah,
Couldn't tell you that.
And they weren't the right tubes?
Couldn't
the
tell you
30s
that.
will fit in the ONA sockets
Okay.
just fine.
Yeah.
It just no
You
markings.
say it, what's a FADA? What is it again?
Beta.
FADA? FADA?
FADA.
The Fata 168, you can't hold it up to the screen, can you?
Well, I think it's a 169. You want to see the inside or the outside?
Inside.
FADA 169 was made in 1939.
But those are 4-pin, right?
Yeah, 4-pin tubes.
Well, they're not, that's not built in 1939 then.
No.
No.
So,
No, that looks like a model 160.
so why would they call it in 1924 a 167 and a 169A, and then also make another radio 10 years later that has the same designation, model 169.
Now, the radio that you're holding up now,
The 160.
with my experience, it doesn't look like a Fata.
Well, then I'm still at ground zero as to what it is.
So all the
So,
tubes for a 30?
A faded 160 was a Nutridyne. If you look on the Radio Museum, they have a picture of one.
Actually, Radio Museum has an advertisement, one, but not really a picture.
I see a 4-tube 160
Alan Douglas
A.
has a little bit of a write-up on it. You know, the 167A kit was $65 in 1924.
Excuse me.
And then just a little note saying that the 169A had the battery terminals in the back, which is right there now. Whoops, try to get some light in there. Right there. Too much glare.
I just put the link for the Radio Museum I was looking at on the.
So I was thinking I had a 169A, but maybe it's not.
Anyway, as long as your audio transformer is okay, those usually come up and play. Fairly easily.
2 audio transformers, 2 audio circuits.
Yeah.
639.
Anyway, current project, big mystery.
I put a link to the 160 on the chat window, and it says it's got four tubes, there's a 201s and a 200s.
The ones, Dave, the 160 may be a 4-tube, but there should be later models that are 5 tubes, and that's what he has.
Oh, I see.
And yeah, you're right. That could be a 12 in the output, and all the other tubes should be 01As. Could be a 1271 would work, I think, depending on the filament.
Yep, they're 01As.
Well, all right then. Thank you.
I have a lot of radios just like that, but they're called Atwater Kents.
Yeah, I would just put some voltages on it and see what happens. You'll probably want to check the filaments first, just to make sure that they're there.
Make sure they glow.
Yeah, I need some headphones and or an external speaker.
You need about 1,000 ohm speaker, high impedance speaker.
1,000 ohm, huh?
600, 1,000, somewhere in that vicinity.
How about headphones? 600 ohms also?
Yeah, 1,000 ohm headphones will be fine. 2,000 ohm headphones will be fine.
All right.
That's,
We'll figure it out.
That's a good point. If you don't have a speaker, try it out with headphones. It'll work. Now you got to have an antenna.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got all kinds of antennas.
Okay.
I got one that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. About a noise canceling passive loop antenna.
Well, that radio will work just fine if you take about 30 or 40 feet of wire and lay it on the ground.
Yeah, I got that too.
Okay, then you're fine.
Yeah. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Put about 90 volts on the plate. If you want to be conservative to start with, start off with 67 to see what it does. And if everything looks good, move it up to 90.
Okay.
So they don't have any schematics up here on Radio Museum. For it.
No, the schematics for that era are strange.
I was gonna bring my Atwater Kent Model 19 to have it playing for you guys tonight, but I got busy on other stuff. And my 19 is the same as your Feta, almost. Except your Feta's got 5 tubes and my 19 has 4.
Does the 19 have 2 audio stages?
Yes. 2 audio stages and 1 RF stage, a detector, and 2 audios.
Now, would that have been in, because the box it's in is not factory, it's a homebrew box, but the plate that it's on and the construction techniques look like they are factory technique, factory produced, which makes it really quite a bit of a puzzle. Was that a kit radio or was it a factory radio that somebody put a box on the put it inside a box, or just what's going on with that?
Well, with as old as it is, you never know.
You never know, not now.
Right. The radio case looked nice. It looked like a nice looking radio.
Well, it's for that era, it's held together surprisingly well, considering that it's it looks homebrew.
Well, back then when they came out of the factory, they looked homebrew.
So yeah, well, maybe it is a factory.
Because they're just boxes with a plexiglass, plexiglass or plastic cover.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the boxes are more ornate than others.
Now this is a plain pine box, looks like, or plain plywood.
Well, mine are plain mahogany.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good luck.
There's
Thank
that
you.
one link
have
on the I sent it out, the last link. It's got some it's got a schematic in there for it. And it's got a plate for the front, a template for the front of it. It's reasonably readable.
I got a question from the swap meet. There was a in the pre-meet information, there was 2 Browning Drake radios in there. If anybody saw those or got those, were those commercial Browning Drakes or were they like the homemade ones?
They were both kits.
Well, they were the kits.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you and your dad get them?
Dad got the little one. Brian Toon got the big one.
Okay, how'd they look? Did they look pretty good?
Oh yeah. The big one especially was just a dream to behold. That one went to Brian. Dad got the little one, and there was a schematic with it, and also some builder's notes about how he'd modified the circuit. So there's a little bit of history there.
Oh, that sounds neat.
Yeah. And by the way, the little one had the O1A 4-pin bayonet sockets, but they had plugged 30s in it, just like Mark's radio had 30s in it. That's why I kind of chuckled when he mentioned that.
Will the Browning Drake work with 30s?
I think so. That was part of the notes in there, was about how they'd modified it a little bit. So I assume so. We haven't really messed with it yet. Dad just drug it home and has been kind of admiring it ever since.
Those are they're kind of a unique radio.
Yep.
Well, as you know, they're regens.
Oh, that schematic's better. Oh. So they took the phones off of the first audio amp, and the horn is off the second audio amp tube.
Yeah, and usually when you plug the horn in, then it fires up the filament for that last tube as the amplifier.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
Which ones are you guys looking at?
I'm looking at the second schematic.
Oh, schematic I sent out.
I had to log in to get to it.
Oh, radio attic, or I mean the radio museum.
Yeah.
How much does that cost? Do you have to pay money to join that radio museum?
You can get, I don't know now, but you can get,
$25.
what's that?
$25.
Okay. But if you contribute, you get it for free.
Oh, I see.
And I did a contribution of a schematic that they did not have. In fact, I had to hand draw it.
Sorry.
And there was no schematic anywhere available. And
How many points did you get for that?
I don't know. I'm still, they've never shut me down.
Yeah, it's on a point system, and I think I fulfilled I think it was a Masterpiece 3, a Silver Marshall Masterpiece 3 or something like that. And same thing, it was hand drawn, and I put it on there, and I got, I don't know, like 4,000 points for it or something. But I'm on the contribution side. I joined before you could pay to get in, and it's actually, they're pretty generous with their points, but a point is a mouse click.
Mouse click.
I think the last time I looked, I had about 8,600 mouse clicks. Yeah, that's how they track it, or at least it's how they used to track it.
So how do you find out?
There's a place in there to look and see what your point count is, but if you get down under a certain amount, I think it's a couple of hundred, they'll send you an email to remind you you're getting low on points, you need to contribute.
Oh, okay. I'll be darned.
I got a whole bunch of points when I put my Zenith 977, I think it is. I've got a Zenith 977 in my collection, which is a proto. There was only one built.
Oh,
that was interesting, proving to them it was a real Zenith, but I went through
okay.
the steps and they recognized it. It's out there. You won't find it in any books anywhere, but it does say on the back of it in kind of an orange paint on a brown crinkle paint chassis. It says, I believe it says Proto Lab A, not for sale.
I'll be darned.
Interesting.
That's cool.
Interesting that got out of the factory.
Yeah, what was really fun about it was I was able to get the history on it, and I bought it from a collector in Oregon who told me that he got it from a particular individual in Washington, and I was able to get a hold of that individual. He's now passed away, but he told me the name of the estate sale he went to, and he says I believe the guy was a longtime Zenith design engineer. And didn't find much information on him, but I contacted Harold Cones, and Harold Cones had information that they'd gotten from the archives. And he said, yeah, that individual was with the company from 1930, I think 1934 through the war, and then came back after the war and worked for him until 52 or something like that. I've got it all written down. But that fits it's a 1936 radio, 1935, it's 1935 radio. And that fits in very nicely, but it's interesting because it's got the paper tags on the inside and it's got the metal chassis riveted to the chassis, or the ID tag is, and it all matches. And the case is rather ordinary compared to what the 970 series cabinets looked like in 1935. This one it's a very pretty cabinet, but it is pretty plain Jane compared to what it has. And it has the 1935 audio section in it and power supply, and it has the 1936 RF front end in it. You can tell because the tubes vary. So it's kind of pretty eclectic set, but it plays beautifully.
So there's nothing real particular or special about it that you can figure circuit wise.
No, it's a 35, 36 prototype. And I'm guessing looking at the circuit, it was late in 35 because it already moved to the 1936 tube lineup.
Okay.
And it's a neat radio. It's got in the grill works. That was kind of cute. I think it gives it character, but it has 3 vertical bars and they're in the shape of arrows. The arrows are pointing down, as in thumbs down.
Huh. You don't have it with you?
Oh yeah, it's up in my collection.
I have to bring it out next time.
And I'll go out and move some stuff around so you can see what it looks like. But yeah, like I said, it actually is more reminiscent of a 1939 or 40 radio. It's kind of ordinary, but the 970 series was a little bit more gothic. But it's a fun piece. It's the only radio I've got that I can actually honestly say I think might be rare.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Is that
on mine?
Is it 970, Blake? Is that that's a console?
Yep. It's a 977, I believe, is the number on it.
21.
If you do a search on it, you might be able to, it may come up at Radio Museum. That's the only place I know of it's been posted.
Blake, turn your video on.
Why? You want to look at me?
So we can see the radio.
Oh, I'm not here in the garage. You're not going to see the radio.
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. My apologies.
Yeah,
No
the
worries.
one I put the hand-drawn schematic up was for Sergeant 21 AA.
Oh, neat.
Anything been going on with you?
Well, I just do a lot of gardening.
Well, I see it. It does have the arrows pointing down.
Yeah.
You say that's your radio that you have there?
That is my radio, and the only place that I've ever listed is on Radio Museum. So if you see it anywhere else, they've taken it from Radio Museum.
Touched by an angel. Maybe when you were a kid.
Should say it's part of my collection.
Older show.
It sounds like that Disney show where 2 dogs from the heavens try to get
Oh,
back
it's in
and forth.
Espanol.
No,
This is
Some
better
reason.
than that. Yeah.
different.
That was about real people, real stories.
You want to put
Well,
the link up?
Life
David?
situation.
Pardon me?
You want to put the link up, Chad?
Yep.
You know, if you wanted Dad's help on.
Well, we're still trying to get the same old radio working over here. But,
For some reason, it's in Spanish, so you have to translate it to English.
not being very cooperative.
I think Dad'll know what he
All right,
can do.
model created by Blake Zietz. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. That's the radio.
I guess I didn't catch that it would be a console.
And
Cool
it's-
Yep.
It's a 7.2. 1, 2, 3,
It was a
4.
9 tube, but maybe it doesn't. It's 9 tube.
9 tube.
58. Yeah, but you
Right.
can see it's got the 80s and I think the 2A5s are a little bit older.
Mhm.
No, those are all 2.5 volt tubes.
How come
Like I
I
said, the
can't
design.
see- Why can't I see Blake's picture?
Oh, because Blake's looking at the radio. Sorry about that.
Well, do you have your video turned on?
Yeah, but I'm off somewhere else right now. Hang on a second. I'll try and get it
Oh,
back.
okay.
for
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
they're all 2.5 volt filaments. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Why would they do 2.5 volt film? So you have the ballast resistor in there or is that one of those corded resistors that the resistors in the cord?
Well, they did that. They had some 2.5 volt radios way back then, mid 30s. You just had a 2.5 volt filament.
Mhm. But I see, because it's got the transformer then.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the tubes aren't coming to mind right now, but they had tubes.
Yeah, they're the 50 series, 57, 58s, 2A5s, and then an 80 for the
Yeah,
radio.
that's right.
The 80 is a 5 volt.
Yep.
And I don't know what a 2A7 is.
It's a
2A5.
2.5 volt.
Oh, 2A7's a detector.
a converter.
Yeah, first detector.
Yeah.
2A5s are the audio is just push pull in it. And as I recall, the only major thing that was wrong with the radio when I got it was interstage transformer was out, and was able to zap that and get it to go again, and it's been fine ever since.
What do you mean by zap that, Blake? What do you?
I've got a 21,000 volt quarter amp transformer over here that basically what it does, it's high enough voltage that if you've got a break in the coil, occasionally, maybe half of the time, you can create a carbon arc and it'll literally weld it back together. It works fairly
really?
well, except on that water can. I've had a 0% recovery rate for AKs.
Oh, for open audio transformers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going
I
to say
don't do it
that
on
method,
power
with
transformer.
that method, you want to cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Maybe cross fingers on both hands.
No thing. I don't want those crossed fingers anywhere near that transformer. That's the one piece of equipment on my bench that I have ultimate respect for.
But you just mentioned that was sometimes an iffy way to do it, but it does work sometimes.
It does work sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I save a good number of transformers, especially the ones that are in the middle. Sometimes you can unwind a wrap and find it in a bend right where the comes out of the transformer, but if it's deep inside, the zapping seems to work pretty good.
Really?
Again, without Atwater I don't seem to get any other stuff to work.
So you just arc the hell out of it, and it just forms a carbon.
Well, no, you really don't arc the hell out of it. You actually kind of pulse it. And
Okay.
so I've got a I take it and put it in the outlet, and I pulse it by pushing in and out, and you can hear when it makes a connection because the transformer will buckle down. It'll actually change tone a little bit. But I think this was a very large neon light transformer. I know it's rated at 21,000 volts, 250 mils, which is enough to send any of us into the next chapter.
Oh yeah.
So I stay a good distance from it. But yeah, you just pulse it, and you'll hear it load down.
Quarter amp.
Usually, yeah. That's a
lot. That's a lot of
neon.
IV. That's a lot of power.
Yeah. This thing's the size of it. This thing is the size of a cinder block with great big porcelain washers coming out the side, and probably a 1/4 inch or 3/8 stud.
Do you have like
under that
240 volt, 50 amp plug or something like that?
No, it's a fairly small plug. It's got a standard 18 gauge non-polarized plug on it. But what comes out of it is pretty substantial.
Yeah, usually they're putting out 20 or 30 milliamps.
Yes. I used to use this at Halloween for a Jacob's ladder, and it'll throw 3 to 4 rungs a foot apart.
Wow.
Yeah, but when you do that, you just touch it. You don't hold it on there.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. You just, like I said, I pulse it. You walk 3 feet away from it, and you stick the plug into an outlet, and you just kind of jab it. I don't let it stay on there for any more than a fraction of a second. And like I said, you can hear the transformer buckle down when the connection's made. But I think people have done it for years. I've had this transformer for probably 25 or 30 years, and people were talking out about using it before then.
So is that a permanent fix, or do you have to keep going back? And
it depends.
I'm going to add something here. In addition to it being a short-term connection, you keep your fingers crossed.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I said it depends.
Take your glasses off.
I've got radios that I've done 20 years ago that I play daily, and I've had them last 10 minutes. So yeah, it is very much a keep your fingers crossed. But if it keeps you from having to grind out a pair of rivets.
Dave, what you're doing is you're kind of like spot welding it, is what you're doing.
Yeah, it's carbon arc.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
that's all it is.
Spot welder only runs about 8-10 amps or 8-10 volts though. So do you put your glasses on? You have little shock, things going across like this, or?
We do it in a fallout shelter. I actually keep it down in my concrete basement that you guys didn't know I had. We pull the lead coated curtains closed, and
You got a knife switch on the wall too?
you know what? I'll show you my switch. Let me get it. I just inherited a switch that I think is perfectly designed for that.
That you wouldn't be working on today, Brian. Are these ones all finished over here?
So, yeah, it just came in the mail today. I wanted to get one that I wouldn't have to replace again. Here it is.
Nice.
Yeah, so I open it up, and when it's time for me to arc it, I just give it a zap.
Go down and up. Yeah.
This will be on the free table too, gentlemen. If anybody wants it, speak now.
Is that a slate or a Bakelite base on that?
Given what it feels like, it's slate. It's
That
very
is way
cold, very
cool.
dense, and very, very heavy.
That is way cool.
Fuses are
Yeah.
100 amp or higher.
I think this fuse might be a little bit higher,
Yeah.
Brass.
Yeah. Okay.
and the other ones appear to be rated at 60 amps. So,
Oh, there's a dangerous man
these are
there.
rated at 60.
So you got
But-
your 203. No, I guess it could be 120 volt too, right? Got
I
your
think you can
neutral
do
and
anything you
hotter.
want. It's a single pole, triple throw. And if anybody wants it, tell me before the next swap meet, because it is going to the free table. My Franken switch.
You got to keep that for Halloween or something like that, Blake. When the kids come over, you slam the switch open and lights go on or something.
Yeah,
They only do that kind of stuff in Beaverton. I'm sending it to you, David.
Yeah.
Blake Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein. Owned the previous owner's name was Abby something.
Yeah.
Abby Normal.
How many are there in the 14. Wow.
I have something here for you, David. What is it? Oh, there it is. It's a little tiny 12-volt transformer.
Oh yeah, right.
I think I'll put that down on the free table too, and see how quickly you can get to it.
See you climb over people.
Yeah. It's up here somewhere. It's in.
So
it's in
it's
my
good. We're
pile
gonna
of
have
people.
when is that? Is what day is that thing?
Isn't it
swap
May
meet?
16?
May 16th, huh?
Am I close?
I'll have completed my vaccinations 2 weeks prior to that, so I guess I'll go and do.
Well, I wonder what's the occupancy for buildings down in that county going to be then? We just have to wait and see.
3.
Yeah, Blake, I'm with you. I think you're right.
Well,
So
hopefully
50.
they'll return to something better before then, but
Yeah, we've been going downhill here on this COVID thing.
Yeah.
no.
My schedule for my second vaccination is on the 4th, which means 2 weeks is the 18th. Oh,
Mine is day after tomorrow,
nice.
number 2. I'd like to turn this on, but I don't think I'm quite ready yet.
You want to do it live on TV? Turn it on?
Here's the insulation from some of the wires underneath. Oh yeah. I told the group here, this is the kind of wiring. It's a 42 Zenith. You look at it cross-eyed and all the insulation jumps off the wire all at once.
It's kind of
It's very
pretty when it
colorful.
all collects in the bottom of the cabinet, though. All those different colors, you know. All that
Yeah.
stuff.
It's really, really pretty unless you're the person restoring it.
I was doing a 1950 Motorola TV set. And I was having a hell of a time getting the vertical to work. Anyway, the vertical was coax from one side of the chassis to the other. It turned out the coax had rubber in it and the coax was shorted. I mean,
Oh,
it was
wow.
dead short. I don't know where it was shorted, but it was definitely shorted. It
You know,
wasn't
Bruce,
shorted.
there's a good story that goes along with one of Motorola's products. And
What's
then
that?
the story is that if you were an evil, dishonest TV repairman back in the 50s and 60s, that when you passed from this life on into the next, that you'd land in hell. And the devil would put you in a room with 250 intermittent quasars. Anyway, I think those were called works in a drawer.
Yeah.
Very, very early edge pin connectors and no gold involved.
I never worked on one of those.
I didn't either.
So connectors were the issue?
Yeah, there was no gold plating or anything on them.
Uh-huh.
They were, I think they were tinned with solder or tin or something like that. And they had a lot of problems with them. I had a friend that I remember he'd go over to his television. He knew exactly which board it was. He'd pull it out and rub it on his pants, both sides, and shove it back in. And the thing had worked for another 2 weeks.
I had a little TV here in my shop. I don't know, just a small portable TV. And anyway, it would go nuts. And I had this C-size battery. I just whack it with the battery and it'd come up and play. Next time I'm using it, it would need the battery whacked on it again. And,
my first ham radio was the same way. I had a national receiver and a rubber mallet. Took a little more than a C battery to get it going again, but once you got it going, I could operate.
What is it? That's just a connection issue. When they do that, because I remember a kid beating on my parents' TV too. You know what?
I had this thing apart several times, and I finally just gave up. Looking for loose connections. While I had it apart, I couldn't make it fail.
Yeah.
Maybe heat induced. My national, it was an NC 188, a general coverage receiver, and what it turned out to be in that was just tubes. I found out later on. I just, instead of whacking it with a rubber mallet, I left the case off of it, and you reach in there and wobble around 1 or 2 tubes, and that thing come back to life. We have deoxit now, but I didn't know about deoxit back in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a spectrum analyzer. The owner of the Spark Museum up in Bellingham had this Tektronix spectrum analyzer. Anyway, I took it back to the museum to see if I could fix it. And anyway, it was one of those things where you tap it here, tap it there, it'd come and go and on and off. And finally, wiggling this one crystal would make it come and go. It wasn't the crystal, but underneath the crystal was a cold solder joint that Tektronix put in there from the get-go.
The Tektronix used
Sorry about the-
a special solder, didn't they? Bruce, they used,
They did for the ceramic strips.
yes,
They use,
the silver?
yeah, 2 or 3% silver. Basically, the ceramic strips have those troughs in them that are plated. And if you use regular, and they're plated with silver. And if you use regular solder, it can take that plating away. And now you have no adhesion, and that connection can fall out of the ceramic strip.
Bruce, do you know if that solder is available for anybody that needs it? I'm
I
sure
don't.
we have some at the museum, but if we ever run out, is that silver solder a commercial product?
I assume there's probably some somewhere. I haven't
Don't
looked
they use
for
it
it.
in plumbing?
Anyway, I've repaired plenty of those without using silver solder. If you're just replacing a component, you're not sucking all of solder out of there.
Yeah, you've already got a coat on there, a layer on
Yeah,
there.
you've already got a coat on, and replacing a part, I haven't had any problem with
Oh, okay.
the adhesion going away.
I'm just thinking of the future.
Is there going to be smoke curling up here in Blake's picture pretty soon?
Nope, we're just, I put the thing down here where we're done to do. We can peek in from the side.
Yeah, I thought you were going to plug it in and see what happened.
Oh, I found some more crappy wire on it.
Oh, okay.
I'll do it later.
Okay, I'm going to dive out of here. We'll
Yep.
catch you guys later. Okay.
Me too. I got a good night
Can we
night.
watch?
I'm gonna bail out too.
All righty.
Goodbye,
Night, everybody.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Well, I'm gonna stay on and talk to John.
Thanks for the
Good night, guys.
conversation.
Night, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.